Hi, I'm Maysoon Zayid. Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Maysoon Zayid, welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. How are you today?
I'm super excited because I have a very big comedy festival kicking off tomorrow, Friday the 13th. So I have that pre-festival energy going. And also, I live in New Jersey in the United States of America, and our national nightmare ended last Saturday. So I'm feeling very groovy to be almost Trump-free.
Genuinely, it's the best I've slept in years. Election. I didn't sleep for about 4 to 5 days, and then I've just slept all week. It's been amazing. So I want to go back to when you were a kid. What was it you aspired to be? I know you grew up in New Jersey and you studied acting as well at university. Is that what you always wanted to do?
Yeah, so I have cerebral palsy, and my parents couldn't afford physical therapy. So they sent me a TAF class for physical therapy and piano to replace occupational therapy. So from the age of 5, I was an entertainer. I was a performer. I just grew up performing. And my parents didn't really monitor my TV watching the way they should have. So as a very young girl, I became obsessed with a daytime soap opera called General Hospital. And my dream in life was to go on General Hospital. And I went to Arizona State University. I studied theater. And then when I graduated college, I realized that Hollywood really shunned people with disabilities. And they weren't too keen on brown people either. So I was the perfect storm of, brown, disabled, not perfectly skinny.
You had this dream of a very specific dream, actually, of being on General Hospital, and I love that. And years later, you willed this dream into existence. And
I did.
Became a character on the show. And so, what was that like? Did it live up to your expectations of how you imagined it would be behind the scenes and being a character?
No, General Hospital far exceeded my expectations. It was so much cooler than I ever imagined. So when you talk about willing it into existence, it was also like deliberately inserting the word General Hospital in every single interview I did for a 20-year comedy career. So like when my TED Talk went viral, and I went on Queen Latifah's show or on Meredith Vieira on 60 Minutes. I was like, my dream is to be on General Hospital. My dream is to be on General Hospital. And literally for 1 year in 2013, right after my father, who was like my great inspiration and my mentor, passed away, I wrote for the Daily Beast on Palestine. And I found a way to write an article comparing Yasser Arafat, the Palestinian leader, to Luke, a villain on General Hospital, just so that I could still find a way to incorporate General Hospital in my work. So I mentioned it ad nauseum, every interview, every turn in my comedy. And 20 years later, Mark Teschner, who is the casting director at General Hospital, who also happens to be disabled, reached out to me and said, Frank Valentini, the executive producer wants to meet you. Frank invited me to his office. We talked about me being an obsessive General Hospital fan, and they created the role of Zara Amir, who is a Arab lawyer shark born and raised in America, very American character. And I say she has a dark past that hasn't been written yet. And what's really cool about Zara is that she's not written as disabled. She's disabled because I have cerebral palsy. There's absolutely nothing written in the character that is about her disability. She's, this highly functional lawyer. We have fans that are like, we want to see her with Liesel. We want to see her with Finn, and we want to see her with Spinelli. So like they picture her having a romance, which is kind of strange for a disabled person, because in general, people think of us as happy snowflake angel babies that never grow up, never have sex, and never get married. So it's really nice to see the fans like kind of fantasizing about what her love life would be, just like any other character. But I think the one thing that makes Zara so strange is that she can't be healed by love.
So, And so there's a massive future for you in that show, and loads of different ways it can go. When you were sort of growing up and watching it, were there any particular characters you wish you could be, or any storylines you'd love to be part of?
Yes. So I was obsessed with The Godfather, the head mobster, Sonny Corinthos.
Yeah.
And I actually got to share a scene with Sonny. And when I talk about it exceeding my expectations, like when I got there, hair and makeup were so accommodating. You know, I've had to have my makeup done in live studios across the world, and a lot of times, especially in news where there's like fast turnaround.
Yeah.
Makeup artists can get really frustrated about the fact that literally my face is shaking. It's like a moving target. And at General Hospital, you know, they had someone help me dress. They worked with the shoes that I needed to wear for my cerebral palsy. Like, they directed me so that I could sit down and never be standing. They were like so aware of me and making sure that I was really comfortable. And then when I got to do a scene with my idol, he was like talking to me like I had been on set and part of the General Hospital family for my entire life. He didn't look at me as like, oh, you barely have 5 lines in 5 episodes, I'm not going to treat you as an equal. Not only did he treat me as an equal, but he elevated me. And Maurice Bernard, who plays Sonny, is really a groundbreaker in disability, because he has been tackling mental health on General Hospital for generations.
It's so great to hear it, especially when, you know, something that you love exceeds your expectations in that amazing way, which is so good.
It really did.
Why is it so important to have representation on screen? What does it mean for people? And have you had loads of people reaching out to you, Tim?
I've had loads of people. I always joke that General Hospital, I have had more people reach out to me from that than anything else I've ever done in my career. It really is that mainstream. Why representation matters? Representation matters for a couple of reasons. One, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So I do jokes about how when I was growing up, all the disabled characters I saw on TV were miraculously healed on the red carpet.
Yeah.
And I was like, Dad, why can't you heal me? And basically what you're saying to disabled kids is you don't belong. There's no place for you in this world because you just don't see yourself. But also, people with disabilities, disabled people face an enormous amount of violence. Disabled women are 3 times more likely to be sexually assaulted in their lives. 50% of all Americans killed by law enforcement are disabled. And I believe that positive images of disability can dissipate the fear and the stigma, mainstream disability in a way that will not disappear the violence against us, but make it less acceptable, and also make it less likely that we're mercilessly bullied. Because when we're the cool character that you want to hang out with, then when you're a real life kid at school, people aren't going to be scared of hanging out with you. Like right now, I'm working on a comic book series for Scholastic.
Oh, really?
And it's for 10 to 12-year-olds. And the main character is a 10-year-old disabled child of color. And I joke that she's Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City at 10. You know, so like there's a little Mr. Big Guy that she has a crush on, and her posse of friends. And the idea is like, she's so cool that every kid wants to hang out with her. And the fact that she's disabled is neither here nor there. And I think that those images can make kids in real life feel less fear, can make parents who are non-disabled who give birth to a disabled kid realize it's not the end of the world. You know, so that's why I think that positive representation matters. And I just think that like diversity isn't about checking off boxes. I think it makes the world more interesting. We're 20% of the population. We should be 20% of the images you see on screen. And we have no idea how many people with disabilities grace our screens because there are so many invisible disabilities like depression or fibromyalgia or lupus or chronic pain. And the stigma against invisible disabilities, I think, is even worse than visible disabilities. So we don't know how many people with disabilities are on screen, but we know that visibly we're invisible. We're not there. And when we are there, we are white boys.
And visibility is so important, and you're doing an incredible job. And it's important too to have characters. They may be disabled or have a disability of some description, but it doesn't define who their characters are, right? It's not what their narrative is. They're fully rounded characters with their own, you know, goals and dreams and hopes and aspirations and all that good stuff as well.
And I think because I'm a multiple minority, they have no choice but to let the characters be multidimensional. Because I'm not just disabled, I'm a woman of color. So when, you know, I walk out into the courtroom in General Hospital, I'm a brown person in a predominantly, you know, white landscape in Hollywood. It's still rare. And General Hospital is great at it. I mean, you know, there's really strong Black families, Latino, Asian, but in general in Hollywood, it's strange to be a brown woman in a power position, a Muslim character who's not being oppressed.
Exactly. You know? And hopefully they'll continue to increase that representation. And you're obviously having all these amazing conversations, which is so important now. And hopefully we can sort of turn a page. I must talk to you too. You are an amazing comedian. You're so funny. But before you started getting into stand-up comedy, did you used to drive comedians around to the
So no, when I got into stand-up comedy,
okay,
so my first gig as a stand-up comic was driving famous comedians to gigs in New Jersey. So I would pick them up in New York City and then drive them down the New Jersey Turnpike at breakneck speeds. And cerebral palsy is a neurological disorder caused by trauma at birth or in utero. It's not genetic. And it manifests itself differently in everybody. Some of us are nonverbal, some of us are wheelchair users. In my case, I shake all the time. So I would pick up these comics and I would literally be shaking as I drove them, you know, at breakneck speeds down to Atlantic City and Philadelphia, and they would be terrified. And then I would whip into the disabled spot and they'd see the prime parking location. I'd get on stage, I'd do my 5 minutes, I'd kill it. And I became like one of the most requested openers. And I got to open for Dave Chappelle. I got to open for Louis Black. I got to open for Colin Quinn. So, you know, I got to be in all these spaces because comedy is really a great equalizer where you could have someone like Jerry Seinfeld walk into a club at any time and end up finding yourself on stage with, you know, the best and brightest in comedy. So I've been really blessed.
You have indeed. And so you've been doing up to 200 shows a year now. Can you tell me how often you swap your material out? Is it like yearly?
I swap it out all the time. So I have a couple of staples because like I learned very early on that I needed to explain that I had cerebral palsy to the audience. Otherwise they would think I was drunk and being sloppy. And that's not funny. It comes off as disrespectful. So, you know, I always make sure right at the top of my set, I do a joke that incorporates my cerebral palsy. I kind of get it out of the way. And then I have a goal that I'm trying to get to at the end. So I have like the last 2.5 minutes joke. I know what that's going to be. And then the middle, I just like fill it in as I go because so much happens every day. And it's also interesting to me. I don't write down my comedy. I don't memorize it. I don't practice it. I knew I had an interview with you like 3 minutes ago. I just kind of show up and I'm like, what am I doing? Who am I talking to? What's my audience? Am I allowed to curse? And, you know, and then I have my fallbacks, right? So everybody has a bad day. So I definitely have 10 minutes that I can spit at the drop of a hat. I have an hour that I can recite at the drop of the hat. Just in case I'm not feeling like full roar, I have like my fallback.
That's great. And it must just keep it fresh and interesting for you as well. So it's not a script as such. You have these different things you want to talk about, but you give yourself the freedom to do it in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about current events. I talk about like if something really funny happens with my mom or my cat or my life, I incorporate it immediately into what I'm doing.
I love that. And so have you got any tips for anybody that wants to get into stand-up comedy? What sort of helps you out?
Yes, so I'm an actual teacher. I taught stand-up comedy at Arizona State and at NYU, Abu Dhabi, and a couple of other places. So number one, watch tons of stand-up comedy. Watch stand-up comedy from the 60s, 70s, 80s. Watch how it evolved. Watch men, watch women, watch people of color, watch Asians. Make sure you diversify what you're watching. Like if you go on stand-up comedy on Netflix, the first 10 boxes are going to be white men, even though it should be like Chappelle and Tiffany Haddish. And, you know, go and dig. Watch tons of comedy and figure out what kind of comic do you want to be? Do you want to do one-liners? Do you want to freestyle? Do you want to be someone who's more like Hassan Minhaj, where you're like a storyteller? Do you want to be bawdy? Do you want to be observational? Do you want to be political? Like, what do you want to do? And then you have to write every single day. And don't write jokes, write stories. So like, what are the funny stories that you want to tell? And then take the story and figure out where's the beginning, where's the middle, and where's the end. And figure out where can you have a small punchline and where can you have a big punchline. Of course, if you decide to do one-liners, then that means sitting down and writing 50, 60, 100 one-liners every day and finding the best 10 one-liners. Set it up, knock it down, set it up, knock it down. But you have to write every single day. And, you know, there's a book called The Artist's Way that says if you have nothing to write about, literally sit down and write, I have nothing to write about, I have nothing to write about, I have nothing to write about. You won't make it the full hour without writing something. Something's going to come out. Do not try jokes on your friends. Nobody wants to hear it. Don't effing do it. Don't be at a dinner party and be like, waka waka, and see if they laugh. It's annoying and creepy. So set it up where you actually say to your friends, because we're in a pandemic. If we weren't in a pandemic, I would say, find as many open mics as you can and hop on stage. Well, it's easier now. Find as many open mics as you can online and hop online. It's great. Like I used to be able to do maybe 5 clubs a night running around New York City. Now you could do like a whole day of open mics if you find them. So sign up for open mics, be prepared, do your material, listen to the other comedians, never ever take any joke and make it better. You can't steal people's jokes. It's really tempting because a comic will tell a joke and you're like, oh, I could tell that so much better. Yeah. It's being a joke thief. And it's like the worst thing that you can do in this industry. Write your own material. And when I say watch nonstop comedy, it's because new comics always go to the same basic jokes, like dick jokes, mom jokes, you know, fart jokes. And if you watch a lot of comedy, you'll figure out what's the story that you have to tell that no one else has told.
That's phenomenal advice, and I'm sure it would help anyone that's looking to get into comedy. Can you tell me who makes you laugh? Who are your sort of comedy inspirations?
I love Robin Williams and George Carlin.
Yeah.
I think Tiffany Haddish is absolutely brilliant. Jessica Williams, Joyelle Nicole, Dave Merhesh. And I love, like, with a passion, the entire Schitt's Creek cast.
Yes.
You know, Eugene Levy, Dan Levy, Catherine O'Hara, Anna. I'm spacing on her name, but I love her so much, Alexis, because I think that's comedy too. You know, so much of what they do is improv, and they just blow me away, and I love to watch them. I think Stephen Colbert is brilliant as a nighttime host. Hassan Minhaj is incredible also.
A very good list there. Lots of my favorites too. In 2008, you were in Adam Sandler's Don't Mess with the Zohan, which is I love this movie. Yeah, of course I have this. And so can you tell me what that experience was like?
It was like going to comedy heaven. Adam Sandler had seen my stand-up comedy. He connected with how I joked about my dad because he was really, really close to his dad. Yeah. They created, again, the role of Nadira for me. It was like $100 million film. I walked on set. It was, you know, Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, Kevin Nealon, Kevin James, Henry Winkler, the Fonz, Mariah Carey, and then like my idol and the love of my life, Dave Matthews. I was a huge Dave Matthews fan fan when I got to work with Dave Matthews, and you don't mess with Zohan. I'm proud to still call him my friend. And it was like a masterclass in comedy because I got to watch the greats work and I got to work with them. And Adam Sandler, again, just like General Hospital, exceeded my expectations. Extremely humble, a beautiful, like girl dad, family man, super, super cool guy, funny as hell, keeps you on your toes, make sure you work really hard, you know, a perfectionist, but just an absolute joy to work with. It was incredible. My first movie premiere was at, you know, Man's Chinese Theater.
Wow.
And it was really a spectacular experience. And I never got cast in another movie again.
So far.
So there's that. So there's that.
So you peaked
I know how good I was because I never got another part. And Adam tends to use the same people over and over. And I definitely did not make that cut. So
I think we're going to be seeing you in a lot more stuff. I'm sure of that.
I think so. I have a lot of stuff coming up. I'm at one of those points in my career where I'm going to become annoying because people are going to be like, you mean she has a TV show, a book, and a movie all at the same time? I'm like, yeah, but I was working on them for 20 years and they just all came together at the same time.
Exactly. And then, you know, in 2010, you were on Keith Olbermann's show and you were kind of
I was a full-time
contributor.
I was a full-time contributor on Countdown with Keith Olbermann for over a year. Yeah. And then he went to ESPN to do sports. And now I do commentary on New Day on CNN. And
do you kind of consider that to be your big break? At what point did you think? So, you went to that Adam Sandler movie premiere.
There were no big breaks. There were all little breaks. But I think my entire career is hinged on the generosity and mentorship of Keith Olbermann. Like it wasn't me being on the show that was the big break. Right. It was Keith kicked open so many doors for me that like every great thing that happens to me, I can trace back to something that came from Keith Olbermann giving me a chance. But I think the big break was, the little break was I did a Live Nation tour in 2010. I mean, I had lined a sold out Live Nation tour with Dino Badala and Aaron Cater. So I was a touring comic selling out 1,000 to 2,000 seat theaters, in 40 cities across the country before I ever went on Countdown. So I had to make a name for myself as a comic. And then I went on Countdown with Keith Olbermann, and that raised my profile. And the people who discovered me from my TED Talk saw me on Countdown with Keith Olbermann. And the TED Talk made me a global speaker. So I was doing a lot of colleges and corporate in America, but TED took me global. And I'm most recognized from General Hospital. Everything I've done in my life, it's General Hospital that people recognize me the most for.
And then up until now, because this interview will make you go intergalactic, you'll be recognized in other solar systems and around the galaxy.
Yeah. I'm working on a comic book. I'm working on a docuseries. I'm working on a movie. I'm working on an old time radio variety audio series. So I have a lot going on, but beginning, middle, and end, I'm a stand-up comic. Still doing comedy. I have 3 shows this weekend. I have a show on Monday. I have, whenever I can get on screen and do stand-up, I do it. It's hard. We miss the audience. And I joke that I'm Tinkerbell. I die without applause. So it's been hard living in a box.
I remember when your TED Talk first came out. I've watched it several times over the years. It's powerful and it's really funny and beautifully performed and constructed. How did that first come about?
You have to read my book. It's too long of a story, but I have a book called Find Another Dream on Audible, and people can hear the entire TED Talk story there, or they can read it, because even though it's an audiobook, I made sure it came with a downloadable PDF so that it would be accessible for the deaf community or people who are just better at reading than listening. But yeah, it's way too long of a story to tell.
You co-founded the New York Arab American Comedy Festival in 2003, and it's returning this weekend, Friday and Saturday. There's 3 shows. What can you tell me about it?
Okay, so it's our 17th year. It's our first year completely virtual. We were supposed to be at the gorgeous Gotham Comedy Club in New York City, but the silver lining of the pandemic is that the comedy festival is going to be virtual for the first time ever, which means anyone anywhere in the world can watch it. We have 3 shows featuring the greatest stand-up comics in the world. Yes, they're Arab, but they're not just the best Arab comics. They're literally the best comics in the world. They've been on late night and in movies, and just such a talented group of people. Every show has a different lineup. We have an 8 p.m. Eastern show on Friday, and then 7 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Eastern, which is New York City time for y'all in the UK. And you can find out everything about it, buy your tickets, get your Zoom link, come and laugh with us by going to arabcomedy.com. arabcomedy.com. And I mean, what goes better together, like, scones and butter than Arabs and comedy?
Exactly, that's our motto in the UK.
Do you put butter on scones or do you put jam?
So
cream and scones, yeah. Arabs and comedy. So exactly. It's arabcomedy.com. You don't want to miss it. It's a brilliant show. We have Nimr Abu Nasser from Lebanon. We have Dino Bidala, my brother from another mother and father. We have an amazing guy named Go Remy who does parody songs, comedy songs, and plays guitar. So it's just going to be super fun. Buy tickets to all shows, one show, any show. You can cheat and stick like 5 people on one screen, so you don't have to get like 10 tickets for your family. I don't mind if you do, but like it's a nice discount. And hopefully next year we'll be back doing it live on stage.
Absolutely, and I highly recommend everyone checks it out. As you say, I think it's $10 per show, and you can watch it around the world as well. And I'm certainly looking forward to tuning in Saturday. And finally, have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell Show and your fans around the world?
Folks watching the Sarah O'Connell Show, make sure you never miss an episode. This is must see. There's a lot out on the internet, but there's only one, just one Sarah O'Connell.
You're completely right, and there's only one Maysoon Zayid as well. Thank you,
Sarah. Before we leave, can we take a screenshot? I'm really digging my lipstick with this shirt, and I want to share it. There you go.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you so much for coming on my show.
The screenshot in the episode, that's so much fun. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching us.
Thank you to everybody watching at home. Be sure to share, subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up, and leave lots of lovely comments. I'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye.
Thank you so much. This was such a cool opportunity.
I really enjoyed it.